December 20th, 1968, 10:15 p.m. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen weren't looking for a legend. They were just two teenagers parked on a gravel turnout on Lake Herman Road. It was a typical lover's lane, quiet, secluded, safe. But by 11 p.m., that silence was shattered. They were found shot to death, leaving a small town in Northern California paralyzed with fear. This wasn't just a murder, it was the opening act of a psychological war. For the next decade, one man would hold the entire Bay Area hostage, not just with a gun, but with a pen. We know him as the Zodiac. He taunted the police, played games with the press, and then he vanished. Tonight, we aren't just retracing his steps. We're looking at the original data, the mishandled clues, and the 8 specific reasons this ghost was never put behind bars. The timeline, a spree of chaos. Most serial killers have a signature, a repetitive ritual. The Zodiac's signature was inconsistency. July the 4th, 1969. Michael Mageau and Darlene Ferrin are shot in Vallejo. The killer calls the police from a payphone 40 minutes later. He doesn't just report the crime, he claims it. He tells the dispatcher, "I also killed those kids last year," linking himself to the Lake Herman Road murders for the first time.
Vallejo Police Department.
I want to report a double murder.
May I have your
If you
name
go 1
and where you're
mile
calling?
east on Columbus Parkway, public park, you'll find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye.
The first letters. On July 31st, 1969, the Zodiac persona is born. He sends 3 letters to 3 different papers, each containing 1/3 of a 408-symbol cipher. He threatens to kill a dozen people that weekend if they aren't printed on the front page. September 27th, 1969. At Lake Berryessa, he switches tools. Dressed in a black square-topped hood with the crosshair symbol, he stabs Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. Before leaving, he walks to Hartnell's car and writes the dates of his previous attacks on the door in black marker. October 11th, 1969. The final confirmed murder. San Francisco. A cab driver named Paul Stein. The Zodiac disappears into the fog of the Presidio, leaving a city in a state of martial law. The deep dive. 8 reasons he got away. Reason 1. The jurisdictional nightmare. The Zodiac's greatest weapon wasn't his Luger, it was the county line. Between 1968 and 1969, he struck in 4 different jurisdictions: Benicia, Vallejo, Napa, and San Francisco. In the late 60s, these departments were like separate islands. There was no centralized database and no interstate task force. To the SFPD, the Stein murder was a robbery gone wrong until the Zodiac literally mailed them a piece of the victim's shirt to prove otherwise. He exploited the ego-driven silos of no mid-century policing. Reason 2. The black male radio error. This is perhaps the most painful what-if in criminal history. After the Paul Stein shooting, witnesses described the suspect as a white male. However, a dispatch error over the police radio described him as a black male. Because of this, 2 officers, Fook and Zelms, actually passed a man walking away from the crime scene who matched the physical description of the Zodiac. They didn't stop him because they were looking for a different race. The Zodiac later mocked them in a letter, claiming they talked to me for about 3 minutes before he walked away. Reason 3. Forensics in the Stone Age. The contamination. Evidence was handled by dozens of people with bare hands. Fingerprints found on the Stein cab were blood-smeared, making them difficult to verify. The souvenirs. Believe it or not, pieces of evidence were occasionally taken home by retiring officers or lost in poorly managed basements. The DNA dead end. In 2002, investigators tried to pull DNA from the saliva on his stamps. It was too degraded. Even a 2018 attempt with advanced genetic genealogy, the tech that caught the Golden State Killer, has remained frustratingly inconclusive. Reason 4. The 51-year code. The Zodiac sent 4 ciphers. For decades, only one, the Z408, was solved by a high school teacher and his wife. Original data. Update: it wasn't until December 2020 that a team of international amateur code breakers finally cracked the Z340 cipher, the one sent to the Chronicle in 1969. The message: I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber. The kicker: it didn't reveal his name. He was still winning the game from the grave. Reason 5. The mixed killer paradox. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit usually categorizes killers as organized, plan ahead, hide evidence, or disorganized, impulsive, leave clues. The Zodiac was both. He was organized enough to build bombs and write complex ciphers, but disorganized enough to leave survivors. By switching between guns and knives and moving from lovers' lanes to city streets, he prevented the police from building a reliable profile. Reason 6. The unconfirmed shadow victims. The Zodiac claimed 37 victims. The police only confirmed 7. This gap is where the mystery lives. Sherry Jo Bates, murdered in Riverside in 1966. The handwriting on the letters sent after her death is nearly identical to the Zodiac's. Donna Lass, a nurse who disappeared from Lake Tahoe in 1970. The Zodiac sent a postcard hinting at her disappearance. Kathleen Johns, a woman who claims she was kidnapped by the Zodiac on Highway 132, but escaped by jumping out of the car with her infant. Because he never claimed these with the same physical proof, like a shirt piece, they remain the Lost Zodiac Files. Reason 7. The suspect gallery. Arthur Lee Allen, the only suspect ever publicly named. He wore a Zodiac brand watch, owned the same caliber guns, and was in the area of every murder. But his DNA didn't match the stamps, and his handwriting didn't match the letters. Gary Francis Post, a 2021 investigation by a group called the Case Breakers, claimed Post was the killer, citing scars on his forehead that matched the Zodiac sketch. However, the FBI remains skeptical. The multi-killer theory. Some believe the Zodiac was a persona created by one man, the letter writer, to take credit for murders committed by others. A psychological hoax that grew too big to control. Reason 8. The abrupt silence. Serial killers don't usually stop. They get caught, they die, or they get bored. After 1974, the letters stopped. Did he move? Did he die in a car accident? Or was he already in prison for a different crime? Some researchers believe he was incarcerated for a minor offense in the mid-70s, spending his final days in a cell while the world obsessed over his legend. The Zodiac wanted to be a movie star. He succeeded. He inspired Dirty Harry, Seven, and the Batman. But behind the cool ciphers and the hooded costume are real victims. Teenagers who never got to grow up, and families that never got answers. Even today in 2026, the case remains open. With every advancement in AI and forensic genealogy, the net gets a little tighter. The question is no longer if he will be found, but who he will be when we finally unmask him. What do you think was the fatal mistake? Was it the police radio error, or was the Zodiac just a genius who knew how to play the system? Drop your theories in the comments. Let's see if we can piece together what the 1960s couldn't. Don't forget to hit subscribe. We're hunting for the truth every week.